My name is Ali Yousefi, and today I'll be covering segmenting solutions in the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform, specifically covering healthcare in the HL7 FHIR standards. I'll start with the entity relationship diagram and tools to help diagram and visualize. Take a fictional example of Contoso Healthcare, and finally do a demo of segmenting the healthcare solution into HL7 standards. Organizations leverage the Dynamics 365 and Dataverse platform many different ways to meet their business needs. Almost every implementation I've seen requires some degree of customization. Examples include, creating specialized relational data models or providing requirements for the business that require complex logic. So in this video, we're going to cover, how to work with that complex data model. We're going to have a fictionalized observation of a healthcare solution, Contoso Healthcare. To start, we're going to look at how we can generate the entity relationship diagram, right? That's a diagram that helps organizations visualize the data model. I know in my career, I've seen different companies I've worked for, different companies I've been a part of that have printed out these ERDs, and they've taken, huge rooms. I've seen walls plastered with them, and it looks, pretty much like a big knot, right? We have many different boxes and lines and how they're all sort of connected. Kind of reminds me of, Christmas lights and, watching, movies in the past where, someone would open up a box and they pull out this, big knot of Christmas lights and they have to figure out how to unravel it. So in our case here, we're going to look to help unravel it. But first, we're going to start with how to actually sort of diagram our tables within Dynamics. Typically, Dynamics out of the box doesn't have a solution for that. So we're going to look for something from the community. In this case, we'll use a very popular tool called the XRM Toolbox. It's free. You can search on your favorite search engine for this one. Once you have the tool, the standalone tool within your workstation, you want to download a tool within it, a plugin within it called the ERD Schema Generator. I have an image of that here below. The ERD Schema Generator will allow us to pick tables and map them to another tool within the ERD space called DB Diagram IO. So for this one, you're actually seeing a picture of the DB Diagram IO site on the left there, where you see lines 9 through 38. That was generated from the ERD schema generator earlier in XRM Toolbox. We've now copied and pasted that into DB Diagram IO. You can see it creates the boxes with the lines as we've described earlier. You can use the export button you see there on the top to export to PDF or whatever different format you need. And you can also rearrange these boxes to kind of put them in order, which is actually what we're going to be looking to do as we work through our fictional scenario with the Contoso Healthcare solution. All right, without further ado, let's get into our fictional scenario. So we have Contoso Healthcare. They are a IT department that manages an implementation of Dynamics 365, covering claims processing, clinical procedures, administrative functions, as well as patient information. The current state of Contoso Healthcare is that they have three main solutions within their customization area. They have a Contoso base, which is their data model. They have Contoso processes, which contains their business logic, so plugins, workflows, business process flows, etc. Finally, they have a Contoso web resources. This contains JavaScript, HTML, icons, etc. This was designed between Microsoft partners, what have you, and has worked well for them in the past, but they're currently running into some issues that we'll cover on the next slide. Some of the current pain points they're running into is that solution imports definitely taking much longer than they anticipated, and even worse, sometimes they're failing due to timeouts, closed connections, other issues. This is causing major issues with the deployments. They're going over weekends. They're having to postpone deployments. It's just not a good state. So we're going to look to how we can maybe break this apart into something a little bit more manageable. Look to segment the Contoso Healthcare solutions further down. I wanted to pull out Some architectural considerations. All credit goes to the FHIR section 2.16.4. This is their work, but I do think it's important to call this out. Specifically, the bullets here, we see resources. They should have a clear boundary. We want to ensure that as we look to break them apart, they are clear. We reduce our dependencies. We know they have a specific intent in what they do. They need to have and that leads right into the third bullet, right? They need to have a natural identity, right? They should be able to be used across different business transactions. Very common, as the fourth one mentions. Well, the solutions we'll be building will align quite nicely with data model, business logic, front end presentation layer, that kind of thing. They need to be mutually exclusive. Again, this is the redundancy and being ambiguous. They can use other resources, but we need to be mindful of what those dependencies look like, right? So all of these bullet points are really great to see here, and I feel they, as we look for any industry you'll be working in, if it's financial, automotive, whatever, these are good sort of quality attributes to look at as you want to split up your solutions. On this slide here, we actually see the HL7 FHIR standard. Took a screenshot of it here. Level 1 through level 5, we'll be using this as a guidepost as we look to segment our solutions. We have level 1, and we're really going to be starting, I think, with the level really 2 and 3 as we look towards breaking business logic, web resources. Level 3, getting into our core, and then level 4, like the specific domains and areas that we'll be focusing on: clinical, diagnostics, etc. So we could see procedure following in clinical. We could see claims and accounts and line items for claims being all financial. Medications, we've got requests for medication, dispensing medication, etc. So all these here are a really great way of looking at how you could break out the solution even further. Knowing what we know, referring back to the standard we saw earlier, looking at the architectural considerations. On the left, we have the current state, right? We have the three main solutions: web resources, processes, and base. As we look towards a future state, we still have our base, but we've actually split out entities that were within the Contoso base and moved them into more of a more logical boundary here at administration, clinical, financial core. We see even further with clinical, we've broken out core tables, right? The data model we have, but then ones maybe that are specific to even further pieces, which like a procedure that happens in the clinical space. So this will be our goal as we move from the current state to the future state. This will help us to obviously to segment, but as we're moving through our ALM strategy, we could focus on specific areas here from where we want to put our work items and then deploy out. All right, we're about to get into a specific demo that I've recorded showing how to segment a healthcare implementation. Okay, for this example here, we have Contoso Healthcare. Contoso Healthcare, based on previous work with Microsoft support, has been instructed to break out their solutions, segment the solutions, and working with their team, they've broken out into three main solutions here. We have Contoso Base, Contoso Processes, and Contoso Web Resources. In this case, Web Resources contains the any web resources, icons, JavaScript, whatever it would be, any sort of those front end web resources here. So in our case, we have a couple of JavaScript files here, nothing major. For processes, this would be your plugins, your BPFs, your workflows, your custom actions, things like this. In this case, we have a service endpoint that we're working with here. The big one is the Contoso Base, right? Contoso Base will be our data model, can contain out-of-the-box entities, can contain, such as contact here, and can contain custom entities. You can see all these with my prefix here. They work with claims, right? So you go to your doctor, you get checked out, there's a claim against your insurance, right? So they have you as a contact who then kind of works through going through a risk assessment and has conditions to it. Here's your clinical impression, and then finally the claims that go to the provider. So to help sort of visualize this, I'm actually using a tool called XRM Toolbox.
there's a plugin in here called ERD Schema Generator. You can see here, big shout out to the author. That's a really, really neat tool. You'll want to connect, and then you can, load your entities. And you can, if you want to filter, in my case, I have a prefix. I can, filter here, draw all these up, and eventually it will, you can generate what you need, and so on here. It'll generate like this here, and then you can it'll copy to clipboard, and you can go to what's called dbdiagram.io. I went ahead and generated it for us. Let's take a look. So this is generated from that dbdiagram.io. What we see here is we have practitioner, we have procedure, coverage, risk assessment. It shows some of the relationships we have here, right? So a provider has one-to-many plans, right? Provider can have many different plans. Folks can have a plan as different, multiple services that it offers. Typically, a provider will have multiple claims against it, and claims will have multiple, line items against it. And some of these are, those are connected. Some down here are not necessarily connected. But you can kind of generate this here. Here's conditions and multiple risk assessments on each one of those conditions. Here's the provider plan, claim, and drawing this up here. So this is all generated from it. This is just a sort of a demo here. So depending on your data model, I assume this would grow substantially. But this is a good tool. It's the XRM Toolbox ERD generator. So again, this is all of our entities here. What we're trying to do in this demo is to look at how we can segment the solution. In this case, our Contoso Healthcare IT team is, they've made some changes to the data model. Maybe they've added a field or changed a view, something like this. So they're needing to, move their managed solution from their dev environment into their production environment. And they're running into timeouts, right? They're getting error codes that are mentioning connection states are closed, things like this. So, upon further review, we're actually seeing that while this is a great start, having the data model split out, having the web resources, started trying to remove some of these dependencies within, right, to kind of keep these things a little bit cleaner, define clear boundaries. We still see within here there could most likely be a little bit more cleanup. So the approach we're taking is going to be specific on what I'm going to get to next, but I want to show you using a tool I like called Microsoft Whiteboard. So what I'm proposing for this Contoso Healthcare team is to find out what exactly is your core data model, find your core business logic, right, and your processes, what have you, and your core web resources. What we want to look at is to define clear domains, clear functional boundaries between what we're trying to achieve within the platform. So again, just using standard sort of COLAC terminology within Dynamics, we have opportunities, we have accounts, you can have contacts, leads, what have you. In this case, we have a team that works with opportunity management. They may look for opportunities to nurture them, to grow them into potential sales within the organization. We have account teams who may work specifically with customers, go do some pre-sales activities, these kinds of things. And so in this case here, these may be two separate areas that may sort of have their own work streams. So in our case, what we're proposing is to sort of figure out a logical boundary between opportunity and account where they may share specific data model tables, data model relationships, what have you, but where there are clear boundaries. And to define those boundaries, and again, our goal here is to reduce dependencies, right? We want to try to get that as much as possible. That we are introducing a bit more complexity in our solutions, but by segmenting this, having a clear DevOps strategy, how you want to migrate your solutions using whatever tooling we have currently available with the Power Platform Dynamics. You should be able to do this in a way that it will stack logically with managed solutions, so that you have a nice layered approach here. So if I needed to say make a change to opportunity business, whatever here, say a plugin for my opportunity workflow, I can do that. Upgrade the version, put that in here. It'll stack nice right on top of opportunity management core and so on. So following something like this is what we're going to do in this demo here. Again, there's many different ways you can go about this. This is just an example that we're going to follow with healthcare core.
Can you see me? Yep. Hi.
So to help us here, we're actually going to leverage something that does exist that's going to help us as a guidepost. This is the using the common data model that we have here. We have a specific one for the healthcare industry. So there's, as you can see, common data model. You can get into the entity reference. There's industry solutions accelerators, financial services, healthcare, sustainability, automotive, education, nonprofit, etc. here. And you can get into the GitHub of this and kind of peek more into it. We're going to leverage healthcare. We're on the summary page here. What I really like about the healthcare one, not only does it work with the specific use case we have, but this one actually does align with the HL7 standards. So if we go look at the HL standards, HL7 standards, I really like how they're showing this here, right? Where we're saying here is our basic framework, our level one, our core, if you will, right? Our foundation. Our level two, where we start looking at maybe some cross-cutting concerns with security, privacy, conformance, etc. And looking at the administration level of this, and then where it says linking to real-world concepts and healthcare system, and then record keeping and data exchange, right? So the clinical piece, right? We can already start seeing some things that align very well with what we have. So procedures, we have claims, right? Accounts, charge items, eligibility requests, EOBs, right? Explanation of benefits. Let's see, yeah, and then on the administration patients and all. So these actually do line up very well with what we're seeing here. So right, with claim and so on. So using that as our guidepost, we actually can start trying to break this out. So here we see that we have a couple of sort of core tables that we would want to leverage, which could be something like a contact, right? We know a contact is very core to what we want to do, right? That can be anybody from a doctor, a patient, anything like that. So we know that one is clear. So we have our contact, which again is our doctor, our patient. One thing that we also know that most of the time people have is some sort of provider that they work with, right? When I go to the doctor or set up an appointment, one of the first things they're going to ask me, what's your insurance, right? Who do you have? What's your claim number, your RX number, all that kind of stuff, right? So we know contact and most likely provider are going to be a couple of ones that I would determine as being sort of base entities, right? Claims. We get into claim here. We know the claim line. These kinds of things line up very well with sort of as we go back to the HL7 example, line up very well with like the financial pieces in it, right? We have clinical, so we have procedures, we have allergies problems, all of these kinds of things. Well, we kind of see that we also have some clinical stuff going on here, right? So clinical impressions and conditions and procedure and so on. And then we have more regarding like the specific plan. So this may get into again with the claims and everything, sort of like what the financial implications of here. So what I've done here is I've actually gone back to the CDM, and you can see we have the foundation. This is going to be our quote unquote base, right? We have a common core. You can see kind of what's in common core here. So all of these could help you get started if you're in that sort of the healthcare industry. You see we have condition, care, procedure, etc. All of these here, like these are sort of the core for healthcare. But there's also core to our platform, right? So the platform would be things like the
looks good.
The
like, could I ask the team? Were you able to sync with
see like contact
with Devika and the other
these are all
groups at Adobe as
so
well?
those typically
You did?
I like having those separated as well. Are considered at least part of the core. So we also say we have administration, clinical, diagnosis, financial, foundation, covered medication, and here. Let's go back to our. So we have all of these. If we start, diagram this out, you can maybe get to something that looks a little bit like this. So I'm going to skip to my other environment that I've already sort of broken this out on. So in this one here, I've broken out base into contact, provider plan, and provider plan service. So this user, think of it as a patient. They have a provider and they have a plan and service. Again, this is all really up to what you consider define as your boundary. On this one, we have the example here of the HL7. So we have a patient we know that the
these two,
patient is,
strands separate.
here has
There is no integration
this
between
is
them.
sort of the administration piece of
So
it here.
okay,
So you could maybe split out
this
provider
has
plan
built a couple
eventually if
of
you
Java
needed to, following
services
the same sort of
from
um, guide
using
I'm going to show you
Amazon
now. So I split this
S3
into
services as well. So
base. So
those allows
what did I exactly
teams to
do here? Let's
a new release
step it back.
and
So I
try to
took
make us
this one here on this other
so wherever
environment,
the
started
dynamics
here,
related services or
and I'm
use
creating a new
invalid or
solution.
application.
So knowing that on the HL7 we have administration and we have practitioner, patient again it could be something like contact. That's not reusing it. I'm keeping that more in the core.
So
But in here I'm going to have an administration type, right? We're following this approach. So in this case here, I'm going to have another. It's going to be I'm just thinking because we executed quite a few tests over the weekend. So I'm just asking how many days it will retain the data. Something similar to this style here, right? So if I want to have
I need to check with a platform team,
business
but
layer,
the data retention is
sort of a
that
front end
interval
layer,
is used.
if I
I
were using
don't
for
see
apps, flows, and web resources and so on. So we're gonna try to break this out.
Probably more than 30 days. I suppose we are retaining. I need to check with them for the exact the purging timeline.
Maybe different color here just to signify a difference here.
Yeah.
You might be able to see that if you have the app
our
insights handy.
administration
You might be able to see that or the log analytics. Is this
start with
app
a new
insights resource? Do you have access to it?
In my case.
If so, there's maybe we can look and see some how the retention's configured, either on the log analytics or app insights. If you want to get
Notice
into
how all
that,
of
just
these
to help answer
the
the
previous
question.
page, they were all unmanaged,
Yeah.
right?
So the thing
I'm
is,
actually going to bring
we
in
have read-only access to this
my
dashboard.
table.
So since it is being built across different work streams, we
My
are
case,
having
I'm gonna do
read-only.
what's
So I thought
practitioner.
we would check with platform team so that we get to know that.
And I'm choosing to
We
bring
want
in
to
all objects. Depending on how
so
you
that we
break
can
this out, it's
see by
your
ourselves.
decision. I'm going to go with for the core.
If you want to, I mean, if you would
rather
rather let the platform team handle
So
it,
now I have
that's fine. I was gonna,
core
if you
here.
wanted to try
I'm
to
actually
see,
gonna
I mean,
come
I'm
into
happy to
base.
sort of point you to where you could look at it.
And remove practitioner.
Yeah, at least we could see what access we have at worst case, right?
Yeah, yes.
Just remove from solution.
So yeah, if you can go to the app insights whenever you get there.
Yep.
Scroll. Can you
So
scroll
obviously, before you
down?
do any of this stuff, I would definitely have a backup.
You can try.
In dev.
Yeah, where is it?
Of your core, of your processes, of
I
your
think
web
it was
resources. So you
a
can
little
get through this.
bit. Well,
So I'm
actually, you know what?
this
Go to your
out.
your workspace.
Skip ahead
You
on
see
the
on the
recording just and show you kind of how to
essentials
work
area in the middle of the screen. It says
So
workspace
we've
and it
had
says
the
Azure
administration
Service
before that you
Telemetry.
saw.
It's
I've
a
also
link.
broken out clinical
Can you
core,
click on that link?
clinical procedure, financial
You
core.
down. Just go
So
down.
procedure has more again entities.
That'll go
to that
the
are
log
specific
analytics
to
piece here. Yeah.
to clinical, but they're
The data
tied to
export is
procedure
one piece.
here.
You can see
So
like if
this
there's
is a
export
decision you
out
can make if you want to have
to long-term storage,
clinical
and then there's
core
if you
that would
scroll
also
down,
have
there's
procedure
more.
in it. But in our
There
case, this is
is
because
a
clinical
usage and
itself
estimated cost. If you click on that,
has a condition, a risk
see
assessment.
there's a
to the
data
condition, and
retention
what's
at the
the
top there.
impression of it? Like, right? What's
On the
the
command bar, there's
you
a
know,
data retention. Yeah, click on that.
the analysis kind of that
So
one
it's
here.
30 day. Yeah. Now that's not saying that they're not exporting data export, right? It's more long-term storage. But this is how the log analytics. That's the I guess the log store for the app insights.
Here, the big one was to split out the procedure, because as we look at having a procedure, this could get into maybe something like specific codes you might have, like the ICD codes or something, right? So procedures may have different things that happen within that. So we broke that one out there.
So you can't. I would.
And you can see
I mean,
financial.
so it's an interesting scenario here because I know. So if I'll give you an example.
And
so
none
Microsoft,
of these are really focused
we
on them
can't
all having business logic or
keep
web
it over
resources in this demo,
like
but you would
28
follow
days
a
or 30 days,
similar
whatever it is,
approach
due
as you
to
would with
regulations.
the Contoso base,
Be with GDPR, whatever it would be. So that's something Adobe being a global company, you may have to have those considerations as well.
done. And
If
I
you
went
don't,
ahead
I
and
would, I
exported
maybe,
each one
would
of
have it
these
60, 90
as
days, but I would,
managed
be sure we
purposes.
talk to that team and make sure that whatever we do
So
is
this is an
compliant with
example of my
whatever Adobe has to
build
follow,
environment,
whatever
my
mandates
HIR
are
environment with all the managed, so financial core, managed solution,
Yep.
and I'm just uploading version 1.0.0.1. So now we see the clinical core is being ported in. So in this one here, I'm actually going to now do the clinical procedure to keep my solutions in the layers specific. Now, the goal here is to keep our dependencies, specific to those logical boundaries. So this, having this clinical core and clinical procedure should not have any sort of overlap with the financial.
As you know, right? I mean,
sort
since
of boundary that we've set up here.
related applications and services are using App Insights as its,
at this point, I'm going to go ahead and upload the rest of them and get it ready for the
services
conceptualize
like
split.
Java or Amazon uses New Relay.
I thought this was quite fun, so I'm actually installing the core, and there's a Microsoft solution happening at the same time. Here you can see the service level agreements decided to just kick off here, including this whole so all these guys, and they're actually quite nice. The agreements, the extensions, and anchor for how and kind of what we're actually
these discussions.
So what sorry, I'm trying to make sure I follow here. So you have the App Insights turned on, and you're looking, as to have monitoring for all of your services. So you do have this set up for your Dynamics instance out of the box. You didn't somebody mentioned at the beginning that you also have like maybe some form scripting. You may have the App Insights SDK on the client side. Is that correct?
All right. So in this particular scenario, I went a little bit different. When I originally had built the POC was to do a update of Contoso base to keep everything what it was, and then to install all of the sort of new solutions that we have with the logical boundaries, and then do an upgrade. That's why you see a 1.0.0.8. This one, just to test it out, I went a little bit different. I went ahead and added in the core solutions here to break them into the logical boundaries, and then just did a upgrade. So if you see here, so one less install here to see if it worked, and I see that now these are all here. All my entities should still all be referenced, right? So the whole point is we didn't want to lose anything.
So in those,
So we see practitioners all here. We see
services we are using New
financial
Relic as
core.
the monitoring or tracing
It's all here now,
mechanism.
so we didn't
Right.
really
So now what we are
lose
thinking
anything
is,
here. And for the
is there a possibility
the actual
have you seen
for
any
the
implementation where
the tables themselves, let's take a
integrate,
look and see what they
basically
look like.
syncing the data from
So now I
App Insights
took
to
one in the
to some
clinical core,
common
clinical impression,
storage
just to see
system,
what
so
the
that
solution
we
layer.
able
So now I
to
see
collate that and
this
get
one
a
layer clinical
end-to-end
core
picture
here,
of how
right?
the
So if I go to and to
telemetries
get to
and
that, you
logs,
can go to
looks
a
like.
table, like say condition here, click on the ellipsis.
So I'm very familiar with the Microsoft stack with like the log analytics and App Insights and how we can export out if we want to export to
approaches.
even if you want to export out to like Splunk or something like this. I don't know much on the New Relic side. I'd have to do some research. Like I'm happy to dig into it a bit more. It's not a platform that is a Microsoft one, so I'd have to look into their documentation unless you have it handy.
We then
But you can export out
cores,
definitely, and you can have pieces in the middle to do that as either just flat file like logs, like CSV files,
and this
anything
helped
like
us
that.
segment the
Or we can do more
sort of
event-based
monolithic
architecture
data
to
model
push
that we
to
have
something.
into a little bit more logical boundaries here. So that's the end of the demo. Thank you for watching.
I just brought this up because
Just to wrap, next steps once you've got everything in your environment, your split. Be sure to align, if you're working with Azure DevOps, for instance, you want to have good area paths for each one of these so we can further, break up our work items into particular areas. Try to avoid having team members working on same forms and this, these sort of call outs we've had in the past. Using automation techniques with PackCLI, Power Platform build tools, whatever tooling you're using can help make this, more complex solution a little bit easier to maintain. So I would, highly suggest looking into some automation for that as well. All right, well, that wraps our video for today. I hope it was helpful. If you do end up, going towards this standard here, let me know. I'm interested to see how your outcomes go. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I'll be happy to address as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a great day.